Here's a question. What would Jehovah's Witnesses be today without the end of the world predictions? The founding of Jehovah's Witnesses was based on the obsession of the date that Christ would return and when the end of the world would happen. This was the core of the movement from its origin and remains a part of the movement's foundation today. Now, many have already pointed out that the Bible is clear that to know if one is a true prophet, then what a person states and predicts, it should come to pass. Deuteronomy chapter 18, verses 20 through 22. Since not once, but a number of times, the Watchtower has predicted the end of the world, and yet it did not happen, then that proves that they are a false prophet. Yet what I will do in this presentation is a little different. I will mention their false prophecies, but to me, there's more to the story than being wrong concerning the end of the world. First of all, they are not the first to do this, or the last. There was a Baptist minister named William Miller, and through his calculations believed that the second advent of Christ would happen between March 1843 and March 1844. And one of his followers was a man named Storrs. He thoroughly supported Miller's work, but obviously Miller's work failed. However, Charles Russell would take a lot of what Storrs believed and adapt it to his own beliefs. In 1874, Charles Russell believed, as presented to him, that Christ came invisibly that year. However, there wasn't a rapture of the church, so it was revised that in 1878 that Christ was supposed to rapture his saints. So Charles Russell did not predict those dates, but agreed with these false prophecies of what others had predicted would happen. But notice it would be some clergy of Christendom that would predict these false prophecies concerning the day when the Lord would come, in which Jehovah's Witnesses today claim are all of Satan. So Russell is taken out of Satan as a main part of his organization, in which later on Jehovah's Witnesses will claim that all of Christendom is part of Satan. But needless to say, nothing happened at that time. Yet a few years later, in 1881, Charles Russell predicted a rapture of believers, which included himself, and guess what? It didn't happen either. However, the date 1914, Charles Russell predicted there would be a rapture of the saints and the end of the period of the Gentiles. Of course, all Christendom would be dismantled also. Christ would begin his 1,000-year reign. In fact, some of his followers actually had cards, and they would count down to October 2nd, 1914. They punch a hole each day until the end came. Unfortunately, no rapture or end of the world happened, but he still believed that Christ had been here since the late 1800s, which he got that information from Christendom, which the Watchtower today claims to be of Satan. But apparently, instead of using the scriptures as the sole source, Charles Russell would use the pagan pyramids of this world to predict the return of the Lord. Now, think of this. Jehovah's Witnesses claim that they are the only religion that is free from paganism in their religion, even though their official founder, Charles Russell, would use the pyramids to falsely predict the return of Christ. He then said Armageddon and the rapture of the church would happen in 1918, but it did not. He would die in 1916 believing not only the false prophecies of his Christendom clergy, but was wrong on what would happen between the years 1914 through 1918. Yet the new president of the Watchtower, Judge Rutherford, in 1919 would claim that Jesus, after examining all religions, would handpick the Watchtower as the only source of God's truth. So Charles Russell, who claimed Christ came back in the late 1800s but was wrong, but also said 1914 would be the end of the world, but was wrong, and then in 1918, but was wrong. And on that proven track record of being wrong, Jesus would handpick the Watchtower, who Jesus knew would be wrong a number of times, and also in the future, in which the dates 1925 and 1975 are the clearest dates after 1914 of false prophecies. Rutherford would not blame the Watchtower for the false prophecies, but blame the common Jehovah's Witness for reading into the Watchtower that these predictions were from the Lord, which, according to Rutherford, were not, until the Lord would handpick the Watchtower as the source of truth. Then Rutherford would make the claim that millions now living will never die. The new prediction was that the end of the world would happen in 1925. Also, some of the Old Testament saints were to come back, and Rutherford already had a nice place set up for them in California to live. He had no problem actually staying there in this beautiful place until, of course, the saints would come back. But apparently Rutherford was so clueless that God gave the promised land to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob that it was the land of Canaan, not the land of California. Abram never walked the land of California. Well, apparently God's only source of truth got it wrong again. And then there was 1975 that came and went, and still we are here today. The thing to remember is when a date was set, Jehovah's Witnesses' growth was great. And yet when there was not a date to look forward to, their growth suffered tremendously. They are now currently hinting at the year 2034. You can see Watchtower, August 15th issue, 1981. That is supposed to be the end of the world now. But Christianity is not based on the date of his return, but on the power of the bodily resurrection of Jesus Christ.